All right. Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of Talk Openly with Lions Roar Dharma Center. My name's Jack. I'm here with my just wonderful friend, Daniel. So good to see you, Daniel.
Hi, Jack. Same. Always
Yeah.
wonderful. It's a
Yeah.
little highlight in my week to get to see you.
Yeah, I know. It feels good. I think after I don't know, it's like the weeks go by so fast these days. I don't know if you're feeling that way, but man, my weeks are just flying by. And it's just really nice to have some time to okay, I'm just gonna sit here with my friend
Yeah,
and talk some Dharma.
it really is. No joke. I mean, like at time, it's weird. I know partially it's like getting older. Everybody says that that happens, but I kind of like I open my eyes like at like 4:15 in the morning, and before I know it, it's nighttime, and I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And like thanks to you, I've been making note of my dreams. I've been, like keeping track of them. So like I'm really like paying attention to my dreams. And it's weird to me that the dreams sometimes seem like they're longer and more real than ordinary waking reality.
Isn't that bizarre?
It's really bizarre, right? Where I'm like, I don't even remember the day, like the actual day. I was thinking right before the talk show today, I was like, oh yeah, I had this conversation, with my kid earlier this morning. I was thinking about this conversation I had with my kid, and I was thinking it happened like a couple of days ago or something, but no, it was this morning. It's
Yeah.
like that. It's just weird. I'm not losing my
Yeah.
mind that I know of. It's really just like, I think it's just like the timeline's just jam-packed with all kinds of movement.
So much. Yeah. And I don't know if this has happened to you yet, but as I've started to track my dreams more, I would say in the last month or so, um, I've started to have these m memories where I'm thinking about something that happened, and then I realized actually that didn't actually happen. That was in a dream. But I'm thinking of it as though it really did happen. And sometimes it's really mundane, just like a
Yeah.
conversation or like that I found something I was looking for or whatever. Um, but it was actually in a dream.
Ah,
So yeah, just really interesting. I'm
yeah.
looking forward to, yeah, how kind of dream tracking progresses.
I've not noticed that particular. I have not had that experience. I think partially
Yeah,
because my dreams are sort of kind of out there, like they feel
yeah,
quite different than ordinary reality. So they like even if they're memorable and stuff, I'm like, nah, that's definitely a dream.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
Nice.
Lama was talking about dreams a little bit on Sunday, by the way.
Was he?
Uh,
Yeah, I wasn't able to attend. I had my group supervision for my licensure, but I was curious. I'm going to listen. How was it?
It was kind of neat. He actually, so the talk was supposed to be about art, about sacred art. And in sort of true Lama fashion, he was like, "All right, yeah." He talked about art a little bit, and in the context of art, he was talking about dreams and how what his recommendation was. And I thought this was interesting. He said, so track your dreams for for a while, make notes and whatever, and then come back to him like 6 months to a year later. And he said, what'll be really interesting is that you won't quite remember the dream itself, right? You'll just be reading the notes. It's in your handwriting. You know that that happened, but it's kind of unfamiliar. Like it's no longer really like yours, right? Like
Yeah,
it's not your reality anymore. And he was kind of talking about sacred art in that context. But it was just kind of funny because he talked about art for I don't know, maybe like 10, 15 minutes at the most. And then he was like, all right, what I really want to talk about is the five paths.
yeah. Well, great. I'm so glad that yeah, he kind of sparked this. What we're going to be doing is a series on the five paths of the Mahayana journey to enlightenment. And we're going to be starting out with the path of accumulation tonight. I got to say, Daniel, I really don't know much about the paths. I've heard them mentioned a number of times, but I really haven't investigated. So this is kind of like my first actual delving into it a little bit more.
Good. I think it's appropriate. Me too, by the way. Same,
Oh,
same. What you just said. I don't know anything about the
yeah.
paths. But what's really nice is at the outset of the year, I think it was the first talk he gave in the new year. Lama said that his intention was to explain and discuss the five paths over the course, and the it's the five paths and the 10 bhumis of the bodhisattvas. Um,
Okay.
so the paths in the ground, I think, is the way it's sometimes framed. And he said he was going to discuss it over the course of this year. So it seems kind of appropriate that you and I are delving, and we're basically just kind of doing our homework a little bit, right?
Right.
So we'll be a little bit like we'll have some good questions to ask him when he's talking about it.
Exactly. Yeah. So for those listening, take our stuff with a grain of salt always, right?
Yeah, a whole salt
Uh,
shaker, maybe.
right. And this is kind of just our exploration, right? And our learning, and then save the big stuff for Lama and the kind of clarification for Lama. I think that's important to a little disclaimer.
That's a disclaimer that we should have at the beginning of every show.
I think so. Yeah. Bring your
Yeah.
salt shaker. Well, how are you doing? What's going on in your world?
Oh boy. Like, well, we talked about it briefly. Things are moving very, very quickly. There's just a lot, jam-packed days, lots of moving stuff, you know?
Mm.
So it's all good. I'm actually finding it with regard to my practice, um, I'm finding it kind of difficult to maintain stability, you know. I'll give you, and not just stability, but like some consistency. And in terms of like, I like to have it as kind of a routine, right? And I
Mhm.
find it's more difficult now. I'm kind of like fitting it in, and that's always kind of hard. And I want to be having longer sits, but I'll give you an example. So Monday morning, I got up early, went over to the temple, do a little Tara practice, and then I'm like, I've got time. I'm gonna sit, right? I'm gonna sit for a while. This is gonna be nice. And so I was like, this is good, I'm sitting there meditating, do my thing. And then it starts raining, right?
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, observe direct experience of the rain, like no concept, just listen. This is nice, right? And
Mm.
then of course I couldn't do that. Immediately I remembered that my partner and I had left a bunch of construction supplies outside in the driveway, and that she had asked me to help her move it all in before it rained.
Oh,
And we
yeah.
hadn't done it thinking, like we were just like, we're like, yeah, we'll get to it in the morning. And here I was. So then I was like, well, don't let it. And then I was like, don't let anything distract you. It's okay. It's, and then I'm like, no, you have a commitment, like like you said you were gonna do this. So I stopped my meditation, I got up, drove home, put all this stuff away. It's like that. That's just an
Yeah.
example of how like every day is. I have like intention, right? Lama told it. He said the other day, during meditation, he was like, it's really important, to have a lot of intentional practice, a lot,
Mm.
right? And at the very least, commit yourself to 24 minutes a day. If you try that, and like I really want that so bad, and I find it's hard, it's difficult,
Yeah.
but it's nice. I have Sundays and Mondays are good grounding days for me. So Sunday I get to go and be with, I just go and I'm like, I'm going to meditate with my community, with my sangha, right?
Mm.
And so that's really nice to be able to do group meditations on Mondays. I mean on Sundays, and then Mondays I usually go to the temple, so I can kind of start the week off right.
Yeah.
But then I'm like fitting it in everywhere else, and it's hard. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels less like or like it's in thinking of it as a relationship. It's like not spending that kind of devoted time with your loved one. You're kind of just you're maybe in the same room together, right? You're but you're not necessarily spending quality time.
True. That's what it
If that
feels
makes
like.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying, and that's exactly it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But being in the same room as your loved one is important too.
Hey, yeah, at least we're doing that.
Right, right, yeah. So my aspiration is to increase just sort of the consistency of like trying to build that routine up.
Yeah.
And I know I can do it. I've done it in the past. It's just a little bit off right now.
Yeah. Do you notice if it's somewhat seasonal for you? Like, as the years have kind of progressed with your training, any difference in the seasons and your application of structure and whatnot?
Only in the sense that the seasons impact the people who depend on me for various things, you
Hmm.
know. So, you know, it's like yeah, like school and sports stuff and whatever with my kids and like, you know, just the way that everybody else's routines are kind of moving around and shifting, it impacts mine, right? And
Hmm.
so I'm busy doing all kinds of stuff with work and family and whatever, and so that just kind of takes a big chunk out of my time. And
Yeah.
so that's why I have to like kind of be like fit in my meditation somewhere.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Well, and yeah, I guess that's so I keep reminding myself because I'm kind of in a similar situation. And I'll just every once in a while I'll just remind myself of what Lama encouraged me one time to do, and that's to think of every day as retreat. So no matter what you're doing, every day is retreat. And so whatever activity, whatever kind of busyness one has going on is to really practice meditation.
Yeah.
And yeah, not meditation and non-medit or the post-meditation. So
Yeah, you
I
know
like
that
that.
yeah, that part it's kind of interesting to me because it's actually only my meditation practice and maybe my studying as well. Well, less studying that's impacted by this because meditation requires me to stop and slow
Yeah.
down, you know, slow down and stop, which incidentally for a while now, that's what Lama has like been trying to encourage me to do, right? Slow down, slow down, slow down. You're going too fast
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you know with everything your mind your you know whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and so like I really need to slow down, but what I notice is that I can continue like mantra recitation and listening. I can study in the sense that I can listen to a lot of dharma like when I'm driving and stuff. Oh my gosh, I'm taking in all kinds of cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm still like it's interesting because I'm not actually not getting the benefit of the post meditative state in the sense that I haven't like if I haven't meditated early in the day, the rest of the day I may have reflection, right? And I may have some sense of like kind of slowing things down and trying to experience sort of reality as it is, without a lot of, you know, monkey mind. But that's different. That's like real, like trying. It's not a natural sort of outcome of having meditated earlier in the day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
cool to hear. Yeah. Uh, you know, we all go through the ebbs and flows. I certainly, I'm experiencing something similar. And for me, why I asked about seasons is that it seems like to me, I'm starting to notice a pattern over the years where, for whatever reason, like fall, winter, I'm like on it. I'm really kind of disciplined. Something about maybe going inwards, whereas spring, summer, it's like there's so much going on.
Mm.
I have a lot to do. The nights are, up here it stays, there's light in the sky until like 10 at night in the summer.
Yeah.
So it's just like the days are long. And so there's just so much activity. And so my mind is just more excitable. And it's interesting, I'm actually more tired in the mornings during the summer. I don't know what it is.
Mhm.
Um, but I kind of have like an opposite effect than I think a lot of people do. So yeah,
Well,
that's
I
just
think
kind
you
of
bring
my
up a really good point, though. And if you think about sort of conceptually emptiness and interdependence and stuff, and you realize like we're not separate from our environment, and when
yeah.
we notice what happens in our environment during fall and winter, right? Like the sap starts to slow down in the trees, right?
Mm,
Everything kind of goes a little bit in and a little bit dormant, but then in the spring it begins to like flow and speed up, and then summertime it's full production. It's go, 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 right?
yep.
So I think that like that seems like a natural cycle. And it seems like we aren't really separated from that, so it makes
Yeah.
sense that it's seasonal. I agree with you. I think there is like sort of a seasonal component to it, but I just mostly notice it, with
Yeah,
regard to like other people's stuff.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. I do like thinking about that, the kind of yeah, the interdependent nature of our bodies with our environment. There's something just so, I don't know, beautiful about it, and just feeling connected to other people through that, that like we have the same biorhythms
Yeah.
based off our moon, and it's just kind of magical. It's amazing. Um, I have a book on my bedside table that's like nightly reflections, and it's from all these Buddhist texts, just like little clips about sleeping and dreams and whatnot. And there's a poem that I read recently that um, was just about this man in China, like looking at the moon and seeing it like this full moon. And this was a poem from like, I don't know, like 1100 or something. And for whatever reason, it just like hit me that, oh, that's the same moon
Ah, yeah.
that I'm under. And I kind of felt this like bloom of like love connecting to I guess our ancestors, and just how powerful that is,
Mm.
that like we're under that same moon that's been here
Well,
for
I
eons.
like it. I like it. You know what you made me think was, it's kind of like, when you visualize perhaps maybe offering the sun and the moon as an offering, right?
Yeah.
There's like this grand, like, yeah, the whole, spaciousness, right? And what was really cool about what you just said was that you were reflecting on like the spaciousness of the time, right?
Mm,
Like, and I like that component. It's not just space, right? Space time. And so
yeah.
you're like, yeah, same moon. Like it's the same, like, I don't know. There was something about what you just said that made me feel like this bigness, this openness.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I'm gonna try and think of that when I'm doing that kind of offering of the sun and moon. It makes it a little bit more magnanimous.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. That's sweet. Well, tell me,
Yeah.
what about you, Jack? What's going on? How's your practice? How's life? All that?
It's good. Yeah, I mean, like similar to you, I'm a little bit hectic. There's a lot going on, and gosh, I just feel like my days, after 8 hours of work, I'm really freaking tired.
Yeah, yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah. And then I just can't seem to get very rested. And so I don't know. I've been kind of, I talked with Lama about it this weekend. I had Darshan, and I mentioned that like I've been trying, just waking up later, doing prayers, going off and doing my day, and then doing shamatha and study later in the day or the evening. Um, my brain works better. And he did bring up like how we talked about, okay, and also, you can just meditate, have shamatha be on the state of mind that you're in, but that, it is good to know kind of your biorhythms and whatnot. Um, so I just been kind of playing with it, like I'm trying not to make it, concrete to to make it permanent, because I do have that tendency to be like, and now this is the way it is,
Yeah.
and it must be that way by decree. And so I'm trying not to do that. And be a little bit more flexible. Because I think, in thinking about not too tight, not too loose, I tend towards the tight side. And so, in some ways, I feel like this is a practice in loosening up a little bit. And I
Hmm.
kind of have to find that edge, so I can come back to more of a middle,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it seems like I'm in a little bit of a kind of limbo place with my
Mhm.
training. I'm still doing it every day, but I also feel just a little bit um, like it's a little peripheral rather than like, right here.
Right, right.
Um,
Sort of like you've wandered towards the outside of the labyrinth.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeps happening. One thing that brings me closer to the middle of the labyrinth again is reflections on our teacher and other teachers. So I try and remind myself of that. And uh, had one experience recently where I chose kind of just like one sentence, one phrase that Lama uses commonly, that, we don't own it, about like bodhicitta. And I just kind of sat with that for a while and was thinking about Lama and kind of got to some yeah, just some, I think, better understanding of what that means.
Mm.
And I felt a lot closer to him as well. And so I'd like to do that more, kind of like look back at all these incredible notes that I have, right, of like years now of Dharma training and or Dharma teachings and whatnot and darshans. So I want to use that, like there is
Excellent.
a treasure trove. There's lifetimes of learning in our notes, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um, yeah, we'll
Without a
see.
doubt, sometimes like I'll pick up a notebook that I am not using right now, like I'm not always using the same notebook. And
Yeah,
then I'll see something from like a long time ago, and then I'll reread and reading the notes that I took maybe 2 or 3 years ago, it hits different now,
it does.
you know?
Yeah,
It means something else. Like it's neat.
super neat. Yeah, so that might be part of my practice. And it seems like just a good way to, like, especially for those of us who don't have a ton of time, to really kind of like, okay, I'm just going to take this like pith instruction and chew on it for a little while. Maybe
Yeah.
even carry it with me throughout my day, kind of
Yep.
try and bring it back up. And that can be a way that, we can keep it a little bit more in the center.
You could chew your cud.
Yeah, that's right.
You could
Yeah,
like
yeah, just speed it back up.
take this little pithy thing, chew on it for a while, swallow it, bring it back,
Yep.
and just keep gnawing away at it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, though I think that's definitely how the like any of the sort of like pithy things that Lama has pointed out, I oftentimes just it comes up, it comes up sort of on its own, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna chew on that again for a while.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Mm.
it's kind of fun. Feels like when that happens, it's such a good moment. It's like, oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's a little bit of the sort of like the seed thing. Like he plants these little seeds, and then we get to watch it in these different stages. We get to see how it is, and along the way.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Magic.
Magic.
Well, what do you think? Should we do some Lo-jong?
No, not this
No, not
week.
today. Okay.
No, I'm just
Okay.
kidding. Let's do some Lo-jong. Hang on, let me share my screen.
Mm,
I will pull up the RLSG from the LRDC.org and the Lions or Dharma Center.org website. So let's do this. Push the big orange button.
oh, this is good. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Tired. Okay. 26. Don't think about the affairs of others. This is a good one for me. I think about the affairs of others
Okay.
frequently.
All right.
Okay, it is inappropriate to ruminate about the shortcomings of sentient beings in general, and particularly of those who have entered the monastic order, especially your fellow practitioners. At the least, you should be joyful towards them, for you are training the mind. Even if you happen to feel that certain associations may be inappropriate, since you are training the mind, contemplating others' shortcomings is inappropriate. If you do happen to lose control and notice in that there's shortcoming, think, this is my own deluded perception. No such flaw exists in them. All sentient beings are endowed with the nucleus, ooh, I like that, the nucleus of Buddhahood. Reflect in this manner and judge this perception to be your own flow.
Well,
Seichibo Choki Gyaltsen. Very interesting.
hmm.
That
Hmm.
nucleus of Buddhahood thing. I'm gonna maybe, yeah, keep that up here. Um, but yeah, the shortcomings of others, like maybe I I don't know if I think quite as much as of the shortcomings of others. Certainly it comes up, but I do like think a lot about people in general and what's happening in their lives. Um, so and yeah, maybe as I think of it more, it's like I do have kind of like reservations about what they're doing or like opinions that are different. And so then sometimes it is kind of like, well, why are they doing that? Or,
Yeah,
they should be doing it this way.
right.
Which reminds me of another pith instruction by Lama, which is when you're frustrated with someone, just kind of think to yourself the mantra, they chose to do it that way.
Yeah.
They chose to do
Oh,
it that
oh,
way.
that's how they do that. Yeah,
That's
they
how
did it
they
that way.
do it.
Okay. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be any of my business.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
This is something that I need to hear on the semi-regular. I used to always think I was always sort of aware in the past that had these stories about other people and judgments of other people. But it just felt like, it's just like my mind's just constantly doing that and it's kind of irrelevant. I didn't give it too much weight. Now though, it's kind of interesting. Things have shifted where I do, in fact, I find this kind of judgmental stuff kind of showing up in a more sort of concrete way where it's not constantly happening, but I notice it a lot more and feel very sort of attached to my judgments when they do. And in fact, unfortunately, even within the Sangha, right? Like where like one of the things I've noticed that's difficult for me is that I'm actually not very prone to gossip myself, at least not historically,
Yeah,
partially just because I don't find people and their stuff all that interesting,
that's right.
it's not that I'm above it or anything. I don't care, but I care about our Sangha. And so what happens is like in conversations with people, a lot of times this is what comes up. We say, oh, talk about so and so. What about so and so? And then sort of naturally language becomes like, oh, but I have an opinion about how they did that, or I have an opinion about how they did this, or somebody else will share their opinion. And there's like a little bit of riffing off of that, right? And it's not so much gossiping as it is just this sort of uh talking about other people, and
Yeah.
it's not necessarily like it's weird because it's not like negative. I wouldn't say that, but it does sometimes have this thinking about the affairs of others, right? It's not just a
Totally.
judgment. It's like this like considering how they did a thing and then forming some kind of a opinion or valuation of it. That does happen. And I'm like, I talked to Lama about it. I was like, what do I do? I was like, it's kind of new to me, like what do I do when people are telling me their story about other people? And I feel drawn into it. Like I
Yeah.
feel like they're engaging me about this other person and I don't really know what I'm supposed to do. Like I find myself kind of going along with it. And he acknowledged that. He said, "Yeah, actually, other people's stories have this captivating pull." And he's like, "You got to practice the middle way." And I was like, "Oh, well, duh, but
Mm,
what does that look like?" And he echoed. He said, essentially, what the pith instruction that you just were telling us. He was like, you just acknowledge like, oh, okay, so that's where you're coming from, that's your story, that okay, anyway, we got stuff to do, got
yeah,
something else, like it's you don't need to go any further with it.
right.
And so I'm working on that one.
It's a hard one, yeah, because I that one's real hard for me because um I have been somewhat of a person, I think due to some like codependency stuff, where people will come to me and tell me their stuff, and that's in part why I'm a therapist.
Right.
Um, so I have been in that situation where it's become kind of like triangulation, and I'm this middleman and it's really uncomfortable. And I'm like, how did I get myself in this situation again?
Right.
It's because I'm meddling in the affairs of others, by not setting good boundaries, by just uh, not wanting to hurt the other person's feelings by saying like, I'd rather not talk about that, you know?
Right.
And so this is, yeah, it is a really a very helpful one for me, and very hard, yeah, to do.
Right. Well, and as Lama reminded us not too long ago when we were at retreat together, the hardest part is not necessarily viewing your teacher as a Buddha, right? It's viewing your sangha members, your sangha family, and all other beings as Buddhas, or at least as having the nucleus of Buddhahood, so to speak,
Right,
right? And I
right.
think that like it really is, if when we the few times that I'm capable of stopping and being like, there's a Buddha, and my distorted view is, like doing this thing. Like it does, in fact, release a lot of this kind of energy, but I have to remember to do it. And
Yeah.
when I'm sucked in, it's sometimes kind of hard. I'm enchanted somehow by the story. And there's like an
Mhm.
energy to like getting involved in talking about the affairs of others.
There really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I'm gonna
Mm.
be reflecting on that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Ooh.
Ooh, an emanation of the Buddha Amitabha.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Have we seen this before?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. That's really cool.
I love the flames.
Yeah, dual flames, like a halo of
Oh, the
flames.
flames. I
Fun.
wonder what that is all about.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Well,
The halo
Amitabha's
of
special.
flames. Thanks, Dirk.
Always so precious.
Yeah, I got to see our friend Dirk last night. I attended the Tara um, sadhana recitation and mantra accumulation. That was very nice.
Oh, that's fantastic. And on a full
Yeah.
moon at
It was the
that.
full moon. Yeah.
Ah,
I recommend it's such a nice practice, and I think Tara is just incredible. So I like I've done the other sadhana many times, the one like the little booklet, and this is a newer one for us. Uh and it's nice to see kind of compare the two. Either way, Tara is excellent to have around.
yeah, yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. Speaking of um, doing practice with our far-flung Sangha members, I want to point out that every single Saturday now, our friend Marie in Oklahoma is doing Tonglen practice. It
Wow,
used
every
to,
Saturday.
it used to be only on the third Saturday of every month, but now it's at 9 o'clock every single Saturday. And it was only me and her this last Saturday, but it was a phenomenal. I was so happy. She like rang a bell for me, that was like reverberating, for days. Still,
Awesome.
actually, I can still hear I'm like, oh, that was valuable, like super valuable. So we
That's
don't want to
great.
discount any of the online practices just because I know a lot of people don't like to do them, but sometimes, just like you and I here, this is the only way sometimes we can connect. And our Sangha is spread. It's not just in Sacramento.
Yeah. It's so cool.
Yeah.
That's really great. I'm excited to hear that. Yeah. Great. Well, hey, we're kicking off a new series, a 5-part series for the 5 paths. And yeah, as we were saying earlier, this is kind of new information for the both of us. So we are definitely not going to be covering every element of each of these paths. There is so much. If you look on the internet, it's just like you can keep going. There's so many texts. And so we're just going to be barely scraping the surface. But I'm really glad that we're doing this.
Same, same. I need this study.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Hmm.
So the 5 paths just kind of in general, this is like the Mahayana journey to enlightenment. And the first path is accumulation, the path of accumulation. It moves on to joining, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. And of course, we'll talk in more detail about all of those. Um, but it can these paths can be done from kind of the three different types or motivations of practitioners. There's kind of like the, Shravaka practitioner, like just wanting to kind of, get a better next life, kind of be able to continue practicing Dharma in their next life, so on and so forth. Then there's, like the Pratyeka Buddhas, like wanting to attain liberation for oneself, and then Bodhisattvas. So this is like when attaining liberation for all beings. And so it's interesting that when it can be done from those three different stages. I didn't realize that because there's, other texts that I was reading that it talks about it's, the Mahayana, like Bodhisattva journey to enlightenment. So as far as our Sangha, that's what we're focusing on is the Bodhisattva path.
I like the way that Lama described it because I actually have to admit that I for a long time have not quite uh, understood this aspect of the teachings, like where it's talking about the stages and the levels and all of that. I was listening to the talk that he gave at the outset of the year, and I thought it was really interesting what he said, like the reason for this, like why do we do this? You know,
Mm,
what's the point of having these like lists and stages and all of that? And he said, partially it if you think about it, he likened it a lot to like the educational system because you have multiple teachers. Like he was saying, we have visiting teachers, and he said they're kind of like substitute teachers, right?
mm,
And they need to be able to communicate with each other about where the students are.
I
And
remember
so
that. Yeah.
like this is really helpful to be able to say like, oh, well, my students are, yeah, this is second grade and they just learned, how to whatever. I don't know what you learn in second grade, but and
Arithmetic.
yeah, exactly. So it was like that, right? Like the partially it has to do with sort of from the instructor's point of view or the teacher's point of view to understand where the students are. But also for the students themselves to be able to sort of like reflect on like to see like, oh, okay, I know like I know where I'm at in all of this because the path that we're on, it's not this like it's cause and effect, right? It's not this sort of like magical transformation that just sort of happens, right? It in fact we're following this yoga path where you do this, you have these stages, you have these realizations, you have these insights, and then you progress to the next one. So it's like a progressive path, and it's helpful for everybody to kind of know where you're at on that path.
Totally. Does it ever feel like when I was kind of doing some study, it feels somewhat like the stages can overlap at times, where there might be some like, okay, maybe I'm farther ahead here, or I'm starting to understand a little bit about this, but I'm still kind of back here primarily, does that make sense?
It does, and I think that with a lot of the lists, the like sort of descriptions of the path or whatever, like there's a lot of this kind of back and forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ground, the path, the fruit, like it's kind of all you're like, which one is it, right? Like it's
Uh-huh.
all the same, but it's a little bit different. So there is a little bit of that, but I do think that there's I don't know the proper answer here, but my senses from just my basic look at it is that it's progressive and relatively delineated, right? Like it's like sure, yeah, in fact, probably we have a little bit of experience along each one of these. Probably the only one that we haven't maybe like gotten some kind of glimpse into maybe is the path of no more learning, right? But I kind of feel like how I feel about it, Jack, is I feel like we're in like a one room schoolhouse,
Yeah,
right? And like everybody's sort of on at a different stage, at a different level. And so we can kind of like like if you're a second grader, you kind of know where the fifth graders are. You have
yeah,
a little glimpse, maybe you've heard the teacher talking to them or whatever, and you can kind of you're like, "Oh, I kind of get what they're talking about." But you're not there yet.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. Developmentally just not there.
That's
Yeah.
actually another, Lama talks about it as psychological development too. He related it to that as well. Right.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Um, well, and I remember one of my first darshan, I think it was my first darshan with Lama, just very kind of green, like a little bit woo, right? And I was just like, I think that meditation is like a rapid way for us to like evolve the human species. And he was kind of like, yeah, sure. Um, but in some ways, like that's a very like innocent kind of basic way. But there is some element of that is that through these paths we are, evolving our minds and our yeah, understanding of reality. Um, so it's kind of yeah, cool to see.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And there is, like he has said himself, right? There is like magic sort of happening here. It's just that it happens through subtle cause and effect, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So we just may not be able to see how it's happening, but it's happening because of cause and effect.
it's happening. Yeah. So let's talk about the path of accumulation.
Well, can we talk just briefly, like before that, like why do people get on it?
Sure.
Like intention, why would anybody get on it?
Sure. That's a good, yeah, good to know
Yeah.
that.
What happened? How'd you get on it? What
It's a
was
good
your,
question.
yeah, like what brought you in?
Well, despair, suffering, interpersonal suffering, depression, dissatisfaction with the world. Yeah, kind of all the things, right? And I think, something that is clear about this path is that one needs to have some kind of level of understanding about the Four Noble Truths. So, like the truth of suffering, truth of the cause of suffering, the end of suffering, and then, maybe some understanding that there's a path out of suffering. And so I think that's kind of what led me is that I was looking for a path out of suffering. I
Mm.
understood that there was suffering. I didn't really know about the causes of suffering yet. But I could guess that based off of some of these people that I was seeing and, listening to some of their teachings that, okay, they seem to have reduced their suffering and I want that.
Yeah.
So that's really kind of what led me. Yeah,
That's funny. Lama, he described, he makes it really accessible actually. I love the way that he describes these paths. He says that the path of accumulation, he called it a state of spiritual emergency or crisis.
totally. 100%. Yeah.
Right. And okay, so but I heard somebody else talking about different motivations or reasons why people might show up. And I agree, like suffering my own and other people's is what got me into like the Dharma Center, you know? Um, but I think actually, upon further reflection, I think that what got me more into the Buddhist path, right, rather than just sort of like wanting to calm my mind and be a little bit okay, was sort of this. Like a, it was like aspirational to be something way better than I was,
Mm,
right? Like there was something really attractive about the idea of like a super being enlightened, that is not like everybody else, that has like all these amazing qualities and is like
yeah.
the highest, best thing that a human being could possibly be, right?
Right. It
And
has renounced all the like the
oh,
bullshit,
oh,
of our us
exactly.
like dumb humans. Yeah.
Exactly. I think there was actually a decent amount of that, right?
Sure. I
A
can see
lot of
that.
that's been tamed, right? But
Yeah.
but I'm a Leo and pride and that kind of thing is right? Like so like I think it was a little bit of that like yeah, I'm gonna like I'm a pathetic, human being right now, but I could be something amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Which, we didn't know yet that that's also another form of suffering, of course. But
For
hey, it
sure.
got you in the door.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. which
Yeah.
is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so much of this, I mean, I think what I've heard is that, the path of accumulation is largely around, relative bodhicitta, right? Aspirational bodhicitta,
Yeah,
wanting to develop that quality, that spirit,
right.
um, wanting to the altruistic sort of notion of wanting to help all other beings with their suffering and realizing that the best way to do that is to become a Buddha, right? And I think that that's been slow for me.
Mm,
It's been real slow for me. Like I oftentimes, even now, I'm like, "Ah, do I really? I mean, like I do like it's weird. Like I in truth, I know like I deeply, deeply care about the well-being of other people, but there's my sort of samsaric conceptual mind that's like, oh yeah, you're gonna not solve those problems.
yeah. No, I feel you. Yeah, that's the more I get into it, right? The more I see my delusion,
Right.
and just how kind of sticky it is, right?
Yeah.
That it's like, oh no, I definitely have my judgments and my reservations and all the things, my opinions. I was listening to this talk by a female lama, and she was talking about how her teacher really helped her identify some of the things that she really is attached to tightly, by saying things like, "Oh, you still believe in that feminism, don't you?" You know,
Oh,
where it's like, "Oh, that's gonna get you,"
oh,
and
that would get me.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think yeah that the path of accumulation for me too is like really kind of seeing I have work to do and like setting down some of these, just really
Right.
tight ideas. And not that, like we should abandon feminism, but just like to look at like how am I so tightly wound around like these identities that I have. So,
Right, right. Because
yeah,
ultimately, like even something as wonderful as the idea of feminism and the sort of the spirit behind it, transcending it would still include it, right? It would just be bigger and more spacious.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I thought, one of the things that so when Lama was talking about this on Sunday, um, first he was talking about like in the idea that, for this journey, for, to do this work, we need a lot of support,
Yeah.
like a ton of support. And it seems like this first path is largely about what he said, which was it's a like kind of about getting rid of the unsupportive distractions
Hmm.
on the one hand and gaining inspirational supports on the other hand. And so that's the accumulation, right? Like you're kind of getting rid of the dead weight,
Yeah.
getting rid of the shit that's not helping, and then you're on the other hand pulling in the good stuff that's good, the supportive stuff that's going to help you. And what
Right.
he said that I thought was really interesting, and I have not seen any other teacher say this, but it made a lot of sense. He said that for Westerners, the path of accumulation is largely about community.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen that elsewhere too, but I saw that in my notes. It's really interesting. Um, yeah,
Because
because
there's so in other in like if you think about it from traditional sort of Tibetan Buddhist perspective, they already it's already their community,
it's
right?
already
It's
there.
there already. Right.
Yeah.
But they're building other support in this path. They're finding, they're developing merit. They're doing other activities that maybe we might see as even further advanced along this path, right? Because it's
Yeah.
not, there's like the entry to this particular path of accumulation, and then there's like the end of that particular path, and there's space in between, right? And for
Yeah.
us, Westerners, many of us, like because of this notion of wanting to do it alone, and it's me, I'm a solitary solo enlightenment person, I'm gonna do this. Uh,
Yeah.
giving that up, that's unsupportive, and recognizing the supportive community and becoming a part of an established community is a really important part of gaining, yeah, accumulating the necessary inspirational supports.
I really love that. It's really helpful to think of it in that way because, when I am looking at what's involved in the path of accumulation, it feels like a lot, right? Like, some people it's going to take eons, right, to get all of the merit to move on to the second path.
Yeah,
And so, it's helpful to say, okay, let's just like get some support.
yeah.
Like especially, kind of coming into this new way of living life, like with the five precepts, really being intentional. That took a lot of support and continues for
Hmm.
me like to have that support to stay on top of those things.
Right.
So that makes so much sense, especially when our culture just isn't hasn't set us up for that.
Correct, correct. Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. And from a meditation standpoint, along this path, Lama was saying that, that's what, hence our focus on shamatha, yeah, shamatha and shamatha vipassana, but, largely, especially in the beginning, single pointed focus, calming the mind
Mm,
is a critical part of, developing the merit necessary to continue on the path,
right.
right? And I was curious, just as a little bit of a, we can go off to the side a little bit. How do you think of merit? Because in the beginning,
Mm,
my sort of idea of merit was like, oh yeah, there's like a credit system that
exactly.
you know, God's like, or some, Buddha is sitting up there tallying up like, well, Jack gave, $20 to the sangha, and so Jack gets this many points and stuff like
Right.
that. But we know, that's delusional and silly. But like,
Yeah.
how would you define merit in this context?
There's definitely some of that still in my mind for sure. The credit system,
Yeah.
definitely. But I think there's also like this very what I've come to recognize is when I am kind of engaging in positive, kind of kind, helpful action, I feel better about myself. And there's this kind of forward momentum. Um, and it's like, because karma um, can start out very small, but then become very large. And so I think in some ways, this like merit that we're gaining is it's like this confidence that's opening up into like what we're capable of. Like, hey, I can
Mhm.
feel my possibility. I can feel like my Buddha potential. And so yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question. Maybe it's that the merit leads to that. But yeah, what do you think? I'm curious.
Well, I've been thinking about it a lot lately. I think that I think it's largely, this is maybe why I'm sort of harping on the whole causes and conditions thing, right? Like uh, that it is in fact the accumulation or preparation of sort of like setting things up for something positive in the future. I can't
Right.
help but think of like a gardening example. So we used to have a concrete backyard, right? And there, like, we don't want that. We want a garden. We want a lot of fruit trees and stuff, right?
Mm,
But you know, the we didn't have the merit to start with to plant fruit trees. Why? Because the ground, the Buddha nature, whatever, was covered with this hard concrete, the adventitious stain of concrete.
mm,
And so, then we had to put in some work. We had to do some karmic action, right? Some virtuous behavior to like break up the concrete. And that was developing merit, right? In the context of merit towards the supportive causes and conditions towards the goal, what we wanted. And then we had to, till it up a little bit and add some soil nutrients, and we had to do, had to do this work, and that the work was creating the causes and the conditions. It's virtuous behavior, it's good
Mm.
karma, it's whatever, right? In order to achieve the goal. And so it like within to me, when I think of the accumulation developing merit, I think about it the way that Lama described this, where like we need to gain the inspirational supports, right? We need to do something to get good good conditions for the development or realization of our potential, our goal, and that we need to get rid of the stuff that's not supportive, that's not helpful,
Right.
right? And when I think of it that way, I'm like, oh, merit just makes sense, right? It's just like, just it's similar to karma in the sense that no, there is nobody tallying things up. There's nobody up there, saying like, well, Daniel did a good thing, he did a bad thing. No, it doesn't have to be. It's not like that. It's causes and conditions, and we have a role in that. We're doing that.
Right. Yeah, no, I love that. That's very helpful. Yeah, and I think the path of accumulation too, there's like a way that we can see that it's possible.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
like we're putting things together. We're seeing like, okay, the more I do this, like I'm kind of I'm developing. And so we can kind of see that like, oh yeah, this leads somewhere. Um, and I think that's really important.
I like that you're using the word seeing on this path, given that the
Ah,
next path, the one that comes after this, is the path of seeing,
uh-huh. Is it the
right?
path of seeing? I thought it was the path of joining,
Oh, is it?
which
That's
kind of
right.
connects
That's right. Path of joining, then seeing, right?
then seeing.
Yeah,
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 you're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
You're right. You're right.
Um, but yeah, we're
So
getting there.
yeah, yeah, but there is some, you can see you're like, oh, I'm on the path, and this is leading to good things. These are not so good things, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, what are some activities that you're going to be doing this week for your accumulation?
Well, a good friend of mine is in the hospital, having a very difficult time right now.
Mm,
And so I'm going to go with our dear friend Matthew to visit him tomorrow. I got to check up on him yesterday, and it was in not so good shape.
yeah.
But that's tough, right? Like trying to be supportive when actually so much is out of my I can't there's not much I can do. There's like I can use words, I can offer presence, I can offer support, but there isn't really much I can do. So it's sort of a strange place for me to be because I really want to do something, but
Mm,
I can't really do much in that respect.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and that's yeah, just being there for someone is
Yeah.
something that
Yeah.
and that's what's within your control.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're doing it.
Exactly. What about you?
Well, I'm going to continue with my practice. I feel like I'm doing Nundro with Tara mantras that we're accumulating for Lama. So I'm continuing to do that. But I'm also doing some activism and education this Saturday on defending legacy forests and that are
Oh,
nearing old
right.
growth. And so I'm going to be part of a parade where we're kind of handing out information. I'm going to be wearing a tree costume, like a puppet.
Yes.
We'll get pictures. Yeah, it's going to be really,
Please, I want to see a picture of you in the tree
yeah.
costume.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're supporting people who are actually there's someone who's doing a tree sit to block the timber sale of a near old growth forest. And so
Aw,
supporting that. Yeah, it's
nice. Thank you
exciting.
for doing that, Jack.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. The Elwha forest, you can probably look it up, tree sit, Elwha forest.
All right.
So yeah.
Cool
Oh,
beans.
thanks, Daniel. This has been fun. I continue to learn. And path
Thanks
of
for being my
joining.
study partner.
Oh yeah, thank you too. It's so helpful. And thanks everyone out there for listening, for doing your own study. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Oh, and if you'd like to accumulate some good merit, you can go to lionsroardharmacenter.org and make a donation.
That's right. That's right. Put some in the bank. All right.
That's right. That's
Some
right.
accumulation. Just kidding. Just kidding. Okay. Bye, everybody.